Welcome back to another episode of the Hustle Nation podcast. Today, we've got a real treat. Really excited to welcome Mr. Eric Groves to the show. Eric is the CEO and co-founder of Alignable.com and what I would call possibly the best kept secret in digital marketing and social media. Eric, welcome to the show.
Hey, it's so great to be here, and I hope we change all that.
Yeah, well, I don't know if it's that way anymore. I was on a couple calls because I'm very active on Alignable, and people have been saying, "Oh, Alignable's really growing. It's up to 8 million." And I said, "Well, I heard it's at 9 million now." So I don't know if it's the best kept secret anymore.
Well, your stealth marketing is not necessarily two words you naturally put together, but yeah, hopefully we're changing all that. We're adding sort of 80,000 businesses a month-ish. And it's fantastic to see the growth. Well, it's been 12 years in the making, so it didn't just happen overnight. But it's amazing to be a part of for sure.
That's cool. Awesome. So before we get into all that fun social media, tech platform stuff, let's hear a little bit about you and your story, how you got to where you are now.
Wow, it depends on how far back we want to go, but into the dark ages, I came out of Grinnell College in Iowa and ended up going to New York City, where I worked for 7 years for a small bank called Citicorp. Got a lot of training there, and then decided I didn't want to be in banking for the rest of my life, so ended up going back to business school at the University of Iowa, starting a program in Czechoslovakia to work with small businesses after the walls had come down, between the 2 years of business school, and then decided I was going to go off and do mergers and acquisitions. So I did that at AT&T down at, at the time it was Southwestern Bell down in San Antonio, Texas for a number of years, back when we were putting in all the cellular systems or buying up all the cellular systems around the U.S. and across the globe. Got sort of turned on to the technology bug at that point and ended up going to Omaha, Nebraska to a company called MFS Communications that was building out all the fiber optic rings around the world. And I was doing mergers and acquisitions there. We ended up buying a company called UUNet. Didn't realize we were bidding against WorldCom, so they came and bought us afterwards. And so I decided I was going to stay in Omaha rather than go become part of that, and ended up at a company called Info USA, which is a database company there in Omaha. And from there, ended up going to a startup in Maryland that got acquired by Alta Vista. Google before Google was Google, and was there for a while, and then made the leap to a company called Constant Contact, which at the time was probably 20 people or so. Ended up sort of taking the number 2 role there for 10 years, building that up, taking it public. Had an absolute blast there, but still had a passion for working with small business owners. Which is what got me to co-found Alignable some 12 years ago with a guy named Venkat Krishnamurthy, with a sort of central thought that it's very tough being alone as a business owner. And one of the most beneficial things you can do for a business owner is to introduce them to somebody else that opens up opportunities for knowledge or resources. And we realized that business owners didn't have a place online that they could do that. And so we built Alignable to essentially help business owners build networks that were powerful and sort of unlocked the access and resources that they need to be successful. So without breathing, that was my story.
I love that. So when Alignable was founded, when it was an idea, was it intended to be a social media platform?
No, in fact, it's really not a social media platform. I think that's sort of a bit of a legacy thing that people come to the platform expecting to interact around social media. And in reality, for me, social media is all about curing boredom. And we want it to be much more purposeful than that. So Alignable is really designed to help you build relationships. So you're not coming there because it's like, I don't know what to do with myself. You're coming there saying to yourself, hey, I need to find a website designer. I need to figure out what point of sale system I should be using. I need to find a way to find some partners that I can work with so that we can refer each other business. It's very purposeful, and it's very much around business success rather than curing boredom. And so while the platform itself over the years has felt a little social media-y, it's really much more of a network relationship building platform. And I think you're going to actually see that in spades over the next 6 months or so.
Exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious, Eric, when you started this 12 years ago, right? There's always this point where kind of the gulp moment first of, hey, I'm going to go try this, right? And then, you start with a concept, and I'm sure what Alignable is today and what you thought it was going to be 12 years ago are very different. Just curious about like more from just even a mindset perspective, what kind of got you to take that leap and have that confidence that you're going to be able to solve a problem?
Oh, wow, that's a deep question. Great question. When I met Venkat, I had just come out of Constant Contact. So my mindset was really on the focus on education and working with business owners to help them be successful. And one of the things that I heard a lot in my journey, because I was sort of running all the educational programs in addition to sales, was business owners would say, "This is great. You're helping me bring my customers back. But why hasn't technology made it easier for me to find new customers?" And so I was trying to tease that apart. And I was talking about, well, how are you finding customers today? And it kept coming back to word of mouth referrals, word of mouth referrals, word of mouth referrals. And you're like, okay, here's $500. Go get more word of mouth referrals. It can't be done, right? Because it's not a form of it's not a media that you can buy. It's an action that you have to take to actually have mouths that are willing to spread your words, right? Words are the things that you want someone to say about you. Mouths are the people with whom you've built trust, who are willing to put their reputation on the line for you and your business. So I was coming out, sort of scratching my head around that. And then my co-founder, Venkat, who happened to be in the same town, and he's got a brilliant background as a serial entrepreneur. He's one of the founders of Invisalign, the braces company, and he's got an Academy Award for 3D graphics used in Star Wars. So hook yourself to a really smart guy. He had built out a mobile app for small businesses, and he was talking to a bunch of business owners about it in our town. And he went to a guy that owned a restaurant and showed it to him. And he said, "That's really interesting, Venkat. I like it, but could you just introduce me to the guy across the street that runs that wine store? Because I know you're talking to him too." And he's like, "Wait, unwind that for me. Why won't you walk across the street and introduce yourself?" He said, "Well, I've been trying to meet the guy. I go to the Chamber of Commerce thing. I go into the store and ask if the business owner's there. But the people that work there always say no. And so I can't meet the guy." And we got together and we're having lunch, and he was sort of telling me this story, and I was sort of telling him about, all this opportunity between business owners if they work together. And it dawned on us that they just needed a way to connect with each other. And the reason that the staff was sort of trained to say no was 7 to 10 times someone walked in the door tried to sell them something. And they didn't want to be sold. But this guy just literally wanted to meet another business owner. And so it was with those ideas that we sort of said, okay, there's something here. But you're absolutely right. I mean, when we started, it was almost like we were building a dating app and we were thinking about the grandchildren. Because we're like, well, there's all this opportunity if they just meet and get to know each other and start working together and start co-marketing together. They can have a beautiful thing that's going to drive all this business. And you're like, holy cow, that's what we were building when we started. In reality, they just needed to meet. And so the evolution of the product was sort of drew us back to that core of, hey, let's just help people meet each other, break the ice, get to know each other, and figure out if they like each other. Because if they like each other, then all of a sudden this world of opportunity opens up. And so we were able to kind of reduce the risk of the startup by really being able to tease that apart and having spent a lot of time talking to business owners. But that was sort of the magic that made it so we could actually build towards something that they really needed. And there really wasn't any competition out there for what we were building.
Yeah.
Interesting. It feels like now Alignable is becoming more and more of that networking platform meets social media platform. So how has Alignable evolved since its existence, and maybe what's in the hopper? What's next for Alignable?
Well, I think that the network building aspect is the core of what we're doing. And what is really exciting for us is the potential that AI brings to the equation, right? one of the challenges that business owners have is that fear of being alone and needing somebody to help guide you down a path towards success. Well, AI is beautiful for that if you have the right data set, right? And so by helping you look at your network differently and giving you the ability to interact with our networking coach, which is an AI-enabled networking coach, and really be able to say, hey, I got 20 minutes. Who in my network should I focus my attention on this week? And for the AI to be able to say, well, it looks like you're looking to partner with people who around generating customers. And so, Chris, I suggest you go and spend 20 minutes with Dustin, because Dustin's network includes a bunch of people who are potential business partners and customers for you. And would you like me to help you start a discussion where you guys can have a chat and talk about ways you might be able to introduce each other to people in your networks? That's the future of what we're driving towards. So really, every business owner will have their own assistant standing by to help them maximize the relationships that they have in their network. And it's a pretty exciting time.
Eric, that's fascinating. As someone who's used Alignable actively for several years now, I'm even a Premium Plus user. I just got my own group. I didn't even know that stuff. And so it's interesting because obviously we talk about this a lot, Dustin and I, in sales and in business. Sales is very much relationship based. The more
Absolutely.
relationships you have, typically, not always, typically the more sales opportunities you'll have. And so it is very much, especially for the smaller, younger businesses, networking, getting to grow your network. And you're right. I think you hit the nail on the head. So often, some of these entrepreneurs who are kind of a do-it-all, wearing several hats, are struggling with what to say or how to approach a conversation. And I do think AI is a tremendous, tremendous tool if leveraged properly in business.
Yeah, I mean, one of the sort of things that we're trying to help people overcome is this notion of what the word networking can mean to some people, where it's like, oh gosh, I don't want to go to another networking event because there's 10 people with a stack of business cards this thick that are going to be like throwing in my direction and trying to sell me stuff. And you're really getting people to understand that that's just the on-ramp to building a relationship. And the only thing that you should be doing when you're walking in that room is saying, hey, I want to walk out of here having met 3 people that I actually like, right? And this notion of getting to know someone to figure out if you like them, when you like them, to invest in that relationship and start taking actions which build trust. And through those trusted relationships, then, getting to the next point where it actually helps grow your business or unlock access to some business resource is the secret sauce of networking, right? And so often people just think it's like, I'm going to go in there with a stack of business cards and throw them up in the air and all this business is going to land in my lap. And that's just not the way it works, because business is all about these relationships, like you're saying, and it's so critical to work on building them. And that takes time. And having something there by your side that's going to help you do that is going to be enormously powerful, we think, for the success of the small business economy moving forward.
Yeah, that is one thing I appreciate about Alignable as opposed to some other platforms, is that even LinkedIn today, it seems like everywhere you go, when there's a business posting, it's very much solicitation, it's sales based. And on Alignable, it is so much more focused on networking. Is that maybe one of the reasons why you don't want to put the social media in Alignable?
Oh, yeah. Sure, it absolutely is. Because, we want to be really purposeful. We want to help people build those relationships. And we've actually deployed AI in the back end of our product to limit the types of posts you can make within a group. So we're using AI to look at something and say, this looks really spammy. Don't let it get posted. And it'll actually stop you And it's across a good number of the groups. It'll be across all of the groups by the end of this month. And it really is designed to get you to think, oh, wait, this is not good behavior. In fact, if I post this, I'm damaging my brand. And the challenge is it's how a lot of people were taught that they needed to sell. And it's just not the way to build a relationship. And so we're actually using AI to try and help coach people to the best way to build relationships. And that kind of runs counter to a lot of what you see in social media, which is, shock and awe, grab your attention and try and just, be able to put a product in front of you and sell something. And that's just, that's not all that appealing to us. So you are right. We're kind of trying to lean away from that world and teach people there's a better way.
Yeah. And, so often people will post things like that on other platforms only to get zero reach and zero engagement, and later found out that they've been shadow banned. And they're like, why aren't I getting any reach? Yeah.
All right. So, Eric, one of the things that I heard from you as you were kind of talking about networking and kind of a different lens on it, it sounds like there's also an element of almost smarter networking. So, having done a ton of networking in my career, a lot of times you go to these events, you're building relationships. And to your point, you might talk to 10 people and everyone has maybe different perspectives but there's probably 10 people that didn't show up to that event that really would have been the 10 people you really wanted to connect with. Mm-hmm. And so it sounds to me like, through AI and your technology, you're also not just doing more of the kind of the shotgun networking or even geographic networking, but more, true community networking and getting smarter about who are you connecting with for different reasons. Is that fair?
Absolutely. And it's one of the things one of the reasons why when you complete your profile on Alignable, we ask you, who are your ideal customers and who are your ideal referral partners? Right? Because we want to try and get people who want to meet each other to meet each other. So rather than walking into a big ballroom and looking around saying, oh, I wonder who's here, we literally bring you into a room and say, hey, Dustin, let me bring you over here with a bunch of other people who are looking to meet people like you and are the people that you want to meet. So it's meeting the right people the right way, leveraging all of the data that we have about your interests and their interests and trying to align them, which is kind of funny. If you go back in time, it's like, how'd you come up with the name Alignable? It keeps coming back and working because it's all about aligning interests and really making that connection that opens up opportunity. And that's what we're really all about.
And what I think is interesting, we talk about, the L in hustle is learn from others, right? And the idea is there's so many opportunities to learn from other people, right? Not even just, hey, they're going to be my next customer or my next referral partner, but there's so much that can be learned. The challenge is in today's world, there's just so much out there. Mm-hmm. It's like, how do you boil it down? So I loved, and you can do a lot on YouTube and things like that, but it's so non-specific, versus the idea if you can connect with somebody that, hey, look, I'm about to acquire a company, or I'm going to open up a new office, or I'm going to ABC, to be able to just find someone that maybe has that experience to connect with, to shortcut your own learning curve, just seems like it's almost like a cheat code.
Yeah, and that's why we have the groups and the events on the platform. Is really, we run these new member Smart Connects that I tend to run every Thursday, which is just introducing people to the online networking platform that we have. And one of the things I love to do is quote the Hamilton play line, like, I want to be in the room where it happens. And the groups on the platform really give you the opportunity to tune those rooms and find the people that you most want to meet. So I can join a group that's filled with people who are interested in email marketing. I can join a group of people who are passionate about QuickBooks and learning and sharing, tricks and tips on QuickBooks. And there's a whole bunch of pro advisors in there helping them. And many of the business owners I've talked to have said, well, I actually get better advice on how to use QuickBooks in the QuickBooks user group on Alignable than I do by going to customer support at Intuit, which is fantastic. But there's also groups for veteran business owners, Hispanic business owners, women business owners in Northern California. There's literally thousands of different rooms where it's happening, where you can go in and you can talk and meet other business owners that share your background, your interests, your passion. And then a lot of those groups will actually have virtual networking events within them so that you can actually then go into a breakout with one person or two people and get to know people and then add them to your network. So, it really is all designed to kind of help you find the right people to add to your network so that you can get the most value out of it, but also recognizing that the way you get value out of a network is what you put into it. Right. And so helping others and serving others and introducing people in your network to other people in your networks is really how you get the power to blossom within your own network. And so we spend a lot of time kind of reinforcing that. And that's one of the reasons why we have these ambassadors all over the country. I think there's over 200 of them that run local alliances. And they're volunteers on the platform that just love the platform. And they host in-person networking within a community to bring people together and do the same thing. And so it's like all of these different tools available to you to help you find the right people that will help you unlock this power within your network.
That's awesome.
Eric, it's funny you mentioned that. Just recently, because I post quite frequently on the platform, and I went into a group, I don't remember which one it was, and I just asked a question as a way to kind of spark conversation and kind of introduce myself in a way. It was just an open-ended question about sales and leadership. And I'm not kidding. I had just over 100 comments and I had a reach of like 35,000. Now,
oh my gosh.
if you compare the population of Alignable to the population of LinkedIn, I've never sniffed 50 comments, let alone probably a 10,000 reach on LinkedIn. And I have about almost 10,000 connections there.
Yeah.
So it's amazing to me as a byproduct. You see the number of people who send you DMs. Hey, I saw that post. I noticed you're in leadership and sales training. Would love to connect for a one-to-one. And I'm like, I couldn't do this with 50 posts on LinkedIn. So
well,
I think
it's because you did it the right way, right? You
learning,
literally posted. Well, and it goes back. There was actually an insurance agent in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and one of the most viral threads that I ever saw on the platform was he got on there and he posted into Tulsa. He's like, "Hey, if your employees are using their personal vehicle to deliver your product to a customer, there are 2 or 3 things you have to make sure you're in your insurance policy. Here's what they are." Didn't try and sell anything. Just put that out in the community. And everybody's like, huh, I never thought of that. What about this? Well, what about this scenario? What about that scenario? And all of a sudden, this person becomes like the go-to person for asking questions about insurance across the entire community. Never tried to sell a thing. Just planted a little bit of knowledge on the community and it went crazy. So, I mean, you're right on. The way you're doing it is perfect.
Love it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm an ambassador just because when I look at Alignable, to me, it's you look at social media, and I don't care who you are, if you're an entrepreneur with a small team or a solopreneur, we only have so much time. And so I look at the organic reach on Facebook. A lot of people argue it's 5 or 6%. We look at Instagram, it's like 10%, and LinkedIn somewhere in between. So it's not like you shouldn't post there, but it's almost like, what's the point of posting if 5% of your followers even see your content and you get 2 likes? So I look at, I don't care what the population of Alignable is. I look at that and I say, well, I have an opportunity to connect with people all around the country, and I can very easily spark conversation because whatever the algorithm is, it doesn't penalize me based on previous posts or where I'm from. I don't have millions of other people to compete with. And so, like you said, if you're there for the right reasons, over time, it creates a snowball effect. And I think that's where there's just a lot of sheer opportunity. It just doesn't feel like it's there with other platforms.
Well, you think you hit it spot on the head because you actually just told me the answer of why we're not social media, right? Because that post in social media is trying to capture someone's attention who's bored. That post on Alignable is trying to solve a real business challenge. And other people who have had that challenge realize that it's purposeful, right? I'm not trying to just cure boredom or, become a influencer on a platform. I'm really a business owner who either has expertise or experience or a challenge that I'm trying to overcome. And I'm talking to other people that value the input from other business owners. And so it's very purposeful. And so it's really encouraging that you're getting high quality comments and suggestions. Yeah. It means that we're getting there. We're doing something right. And it's not just to cure boredom. It's to actually move your business forward. So I think you answered my question. Thank you. You helped me answer that question. I love it.
I'm here all day.
Thanks.
Eric, just to pivot for a minute, when I think about where you are today versus where you started, right? This doesn't happen with just two guys, right? You have a team, you built a team, continuing to build a team, which has culture, which has lots of different types of people in it. You don't achieve this kind of success without nailing that. Can you share a little bit about just how you've approached building that team, that culture at Alignable to continue, in a high growth environment, it's really easy to lose that stuff, and just how you try to approach that proactively?
Yeah, it's funny because that you say that. We have a pretty arduous interview process, but by the time it gets to me at the very end, and I'm usually the person doing the sales pitch on the person, my one question that I love to ask is, tell me about your small business DNA. Did you grow up in a family? Did you work? I mean, because I personally, when I was in high school, I worked at a little tiny restaurant as the short order cook, right? And then, my grandfather ran a little tiny grocery store in Hartsdale, New York. I have always had a passion for small businesses and small communities, like where I went to college. And so I ask these folks we're interviewing to tell me their story. And I would say that 9 times out of 10, the people that have been the most successful at our company are the ones who have that DNA, that literally know their parents run a small business. They either, they run their own small business while they were attending college, or they just get it. And, we've had people who took salaries that were much less than what they were offered in another role, just because they love the mission of who we're trying to help. And that's, you don't create culture. Culture is the people that you hire and what they bring. And what our team brings to the table is a passion for this audience that's above and beyond any you've ever seen. It's really awesome.
Yeah. I love that. Well, and just, centering it around the core of your organization, right? I think far too often people, when they think of culture, it's like, are they a fit, quote unquote, but they don't really have any center to it. They haven't really thought about it. They haven't really designed it, right? It's just, we need this skill set, so we're going to hire this skill set. They seem nice enough. They seem like they'll get along well with us. That's good enough. I love that deeper step of, what really experience do they have? I know, like, for me, one of the things we always are looking for is, they had to overcome something, right? Like what was the thing that was their hurdle that they really overcame? Because then we know they found that challenge, they found that way to overcome. And it's not necessarily even how big the hurdle was, because people have different challenges in life, but just the idea that they've thought about it, they remember being challenged by it, they remember overcoming it. Kind of that same thing, right? Because business can be tough on a day-to-day basis. And what are you going to do to overcome?
Absolutely. And if you still have a little bit of that chip on your shoulder, boy, does that drive you. I mean, I still have one. I won't tell you where it came from, but I still have that chip on my shoulder, which is like, I kind of got something I want to prove. And you'll see that in a lot of the people on our team. It's like either they want to start their own business at some point, And we talk a lot about that. And there's a lot of people on our team that I'll actually be saying, you will make a great entrepreneur. What do you need to know? Let's get you exposure to that. Let's set you up so that in 5-10 years, you can do what we did. And it's just, unfortunately, we're at 70 employees. You can still do this, I think, well to about 150-ish. And then it becomes harder and harder, but we're still fortunate to be in that sweet spot of where you can have those conversations and create and build that kind of culture. So it's pretty exciting.
I love it. Sounds like Alignable has a culture of hustle, Dustin.
Yes, absolutely.
I want to ask you something, Eric. So I think so often when we're talking to leaders, especially in a sales team or sales organization, where there's a struggle culturally is so often clarity and connection to the result. And some of that just goes to the foundation, which is vision. So it sounds like you're hiring the right people. You got the right people on the ship and the right people in the right seats. How do you help them create clarity and connection to where Alignable wants to go? Not just today, but in years to come.
A lot of it is talking to customers. We're fortunate to have these ambassadors who are an extension of our employee team. They make themselves available to pretty much everybody in the organization, whether you're a software developer, a product person, or somebody in sales. We're always talking to small business owners. And we encourage them, even when they're in their hometown, when they go out and go shopping downtown, wherever they live, to ask, hey, I'd love to meet the business owner. Can you tell me a little bit about your business? And to bring back those stories to the team. We have every Friday, we do a meeting called Staying Aligned. And a lot of it is just people telling their stories of business owners that they've been interacting with. And we have a Slack channel multiple Slack channels that are just, comments coming in from business owners, or I ran into this problem, jump on it. And the team, like, well, what did they see? Who was it? Let me go see what's in their account. So there's just sort of this curiosity that kind of fills that same need within the organizations to stay close to the customer. But that's what it's all about, is you just have to stay close to them.
I will say that as a user, I'm sure they reach out to other users, not just premium users, but I had that experience where there was an employee, a younger gal, who reached out and asked to schedule some time with me. And she asked me just a lot of questions about my personal experience and what I thought, what were some recommendations I might have. And it was really interesting. I never thought about it until you just brought that up, but I couldn't imagine in any time in my lifetime where someone from LinkedIn or Facebook could reach out to me and ask me how they could improve my user experience. So I think you get people hooked on Alignable. It's really hard to say, yeah, I don't really like Alignable, when you really feel like your voice is heard.
Well, that's awesome to hear. I'm sure that your voice was not only heard by her, but she then shared it with the rest of the company. And, it's fun because every Thursday I do this new member Smart Connect, which literally is an hour of me just hanging out with a bunch of business owners. And then I do speed dating and put them into rooms and break out. But we have this great chat. And some of them are kind of amazed, like, wait, what do you do? And I was like, oh, I was one of the founders. Really? I was like, yeah. And they're like, this is the best part of my week. And so it's really awesome. And, like Venkat does it even more so. And it's just, it's kind of who we are. And we are entrepreneurs like the people we serve as customers of ours. And so we tend to get along really well with our customers, which is awesome.
Well, and you care, which is very, very obvious.
And thanks. Appreciate that.
So Eric, one of the things that I know a lot of our listeners have engaged with and asked us about is, right, when they see someone like yourself, the success that you're having, right? There's this, a lot of times we say everyone feels like people are an overnight success, and then they look back to the last 15 years, right? But they're usually a culmination of daily habits, things you do to kind of tackle the day, because, in your position, you have a lot of decisions to make on just where to spend your time every day. And it'd be really easy to spend it on things that doesn't make a lot of sense. And so usually someone like yourself, they're doing certain things that behaviors that allow you to have the success you've had. So if you were to tell your younger self, right, man, I wish I would have done this sooner relative to just how you tackle the day or habits that you have, things like that, what might that be?
It's a great question. I don't know the answer to that because the road that I have been on, when I have this deck on like my path to becoming an entrepreneur, and it's literally got chutes and ladders in it. And through every chute and every ladder, there's a learning experience. And if you pulled one of those ladders away and said, "Oh, I should have done that sooner," would it have had the same outcome? I don't know. I do know that I have an enormous passion for what we're doing, and so it doesn't feel like work to me. I do know that when like I talk to my kids, my son now works with us, but they've been a part of it. It's been part of our family, and so I've tried to instill in them the same bug that I have.
Yeah.
And they would say, "Dad, you gotta like get away every once in a while a little bit more." But the other thing that I've always been a huge fan of is helping my kids' friends, and really spending the time to be available to them when they were working on their careers coming out of college. How do I interview? And I try and do that same type of things with the younger members of our team and really be there, because the people that I was able to interact with as my career grew are really who influenced me enormously. And if they had closed their doors and been unavailable to me, I don't think I would have had the path that I had. And so, we try and make sure we keep those doors open to that next generation of entrepreneur. And, people will reach out to me and say, "Hey, can I get, 20 minutes of your time? I really would love to talk to you about X, Y, or Z." And, my kids are always like scratching, "Why do you do that?" It's like, because I just love to do it, and it's just part of how I grew up, and I hope that they grow up doing the same thing. So I don't know that there's I don't know that I answered your question, but
I think you
hopefully that
did.
gave you a little color.
I think you did. I mean, I think there's a few things there that I think you probably overlook, but I mean, I think the chutes and ladders example is a great one. I think a lot of times when people think, everyone thinks it's straight uphill. And, to your point, even just the mindset of recognizing that any setback is not a setback. It's just a different path.
Mhm.
And as long as you learn from it, right? So, one of the challenges I think sometimes people is, they look at something as just a failure. Well, it's not a failure if you learn from it and you're pivoting and you're moving forward. Now, maybe that one thing is a quote unquote failure, but not if you're learning from it and it's taking you on your next path. I mean, that's
Yeah,
life.
and emotionally, it's really hard to run a business, which is one of the reasons why we do what we do. But I think having another partner, co-founder through this process helped when those chutes and ladders were emotional, and I was down and he was up, and I was up and he was down. You balance each other out in a way that allows you to accomplish a lot more. And so, I have a huge amount of empathy for business owners that try and do this all by themselves, because it's really hard. I mean, there's a lot of emotional stuff that you go through. And, and that's why we believe that having a network of people that you can turn to, that you trust, is, not only going to make you more successful, but it will help you maintain sanity too, along the way.
Eric,
Sure.
speaking of that, you've seen a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of small businesses, early leaders. What are a couple of the biggest things that, if you could give advice to those young business owners and even family businesses, what would it be?
Well, the partner is a great one, whether or not it's a sub partner in business or just surrounding yourself with a bunch of people that have expertise, that can help you. I think one of the things I was fortunate to have an executive coach, by the name of Jake Carter when I was at Constant Contact, and she was really great at pointing out to me that I have strengths and I have weaknesses. And the best thing that I can do to solve a problem is to find people who have strengths that align with my weaknesses. And our natural behavior is to gravitate towards people just like us. And those people tend to have the same strengths and the same weaknesses. So that doesn't necessarily make you stronger. But if you can find people that complement you, it accelerates you. And so I think that's one of the key things that I would share with people is like, look for people that are a lot different from you and try and build relationships with them, because through those people, you will realize how much, acceleration can come out of a situation where you put those two together.
I love that. Eric, we've got time for one more question I want to ask. And obviously, being a big fan of Alignable, I'm not an ambassador per se, but I feel like an ambassador. If anyone's out there and they're thinking, well, Alignable is just another social media platform, which you've clarified it's not, or I don't have time, what's that message that you would tell someone as to why they should give Alignable a chance?
It's funny that you said that they don't have time. Because I used to go to all these industry associations and I'd watch all of these brands get up on stage and say, small businesses they don't have time. They don't have time for me, and I'm like, that's funny. When I talk to them and I try and understand them and I try and help them, I don't seem to get shut down all that often. I'm like, maybe you should stop trying to sell them and try and figure out what it will take to get them to buy. And that's a big change of a mindset. And so I really believe that if people see the opportunity, they will spend the time. And what I would hope that people do that come to Alignable is to take the time to find 5 people that you can build a relationship with. Join 3 groups that give you access to insights that will help you grow. Join 2 more groups where your expertise is valued by others, and just invest 10 minutes a week, 20 minutes a week. It's kind of like, your podcast where they get all of this value. Look for places like that where you can get value like what you do in your podcast and hopefully what we're doing on Alignable. And it'll just reduce the stress. It'll help you be successful. And it's not the way that you think of hustle without your definition, right? It's not about like running like a chipmunk on a flying wheel, right? It's about doing things smart and doing them well and giving yourself leverage. And, that's what we try and accomplish in the platform. So I hope that answered your last question. If not,
I love it. I love it. And I really appreciate your time. I know you're a busy guy. You got a lot going on at Alignable, and we're very appreciative that you joined us today. But before I let you go, can you tell the listeners where they can find you, where they can connect with you?
Absolutely. So Alignable is just ALIGNABLE.com. Yeah, it's been a long hour there. And you can find us online. You can, join your community. You can, add people from your network very easily to the platform. And then if you're looking to connect with me, just come to my Thursday New Member Smart Connect every Thursday at noon Eastern. You can find it on the platform, and we'll have some fun getting to know each other and meeting a whole bunch of other really cool business owners.
And I am living proof that the CEO of Alignable and the team really is available, and they will connect with you. They will engage.
Well, I'm so glad that happened for you, and I'm glad that we were able to have that kind of impact on you, because really that's what we're all about. So thank you for that feedback, and I will share it with the team on Friday.
Absolutely.
Good.
All right. Well, for all the listeners, thank you for tuning in. Eric, thank you for being here. If you haven't already, do us a huge favor. It only takes a couple of seconds. Leave us a review on Spotify, iTunes, wherever you listen, and we'll see you next time. Peace.